He is said to have told a police officer, whilst they were searching his property, "I didn't mean to kill her. It was an accident." While police continue to search, they find blood-soaked rags in one of the bathrooms, and the blood is tested, and it belongs to Lana. There has been some attempt to clean up the crime scene by someone. Hi, hello, welcome to Extraordinary Stories podcast. Those who've been listening for the past few episodes, thank you very much and welcome back. If you are listening to, I think this is episode number 6. Those who haven't, those who are new, roughly what I do is I tell a new story with each episode, a story that I think is a little bit crazy. It's often true crime, it's often survival, it's often just those weird stories that you hear that you think are really interesting and that you just sometimes quite like to share. I want to do just a call out to those who've been in touch. It's great to hear from you. There's been lots of Instagram and Twitter love going on. There's a Facebook group. If you haven't joined it already, it's just Extraordinary Stories Podcast, Facebook. At the end of the podcast, I'll tell you all the different ways that you can get in touch. This week's story is a high-profile murder case that involves a music mogul. The big question, was it murder or was it suicide? Okay, let's go. So we start the story in Hollywood in 2003. 40-year-old Lana Clarkson is a hostess in a live music club called the House of Blues on the Strip. She is a B-movie actress. What actually, I think I sort of understand what a B-movie actress is. So it's someone who's probably appearing in lots of different films and lots of different TV programmes, but not quite at the A-list level. Someone who's not quite at that level, but is probably consistently working in lots of different ways. Some of the things that Lana did, she was an extra in Scarface. She was in the A-Team, and that's pretty cool. She was in Three's Company, which Three's Company is not one of these programmes that ever really reached the UK, I don't think. I know it's big. I know it was big in the US. I don't think it ever reached it over here. And she was in The Love Boat and Wings. Those are also programmes that I'm saying, I've got a kind of awareness of them, but I don't think that they were really ever that big over here. So Lana is described as strikingly beautiful. She is tall. She has long, lovely, lovely blonde hair. She's really gorgeous, actually. If you look at her, go and find an image of Lana. She's really attractive. She's got this sort of 70s vibe going on. It's really nice, like a sort of later Farrah Fawcett type thing happening. In 2003, Lara is working her usual Sunday night shift at the club that I mentioned, and she meets a well-known, experienced, flamboyant music producer in the club. However, she doesn't recognise him. The music producer is Phil Spector, a well-known and extremely wealthy music producer who created something called the Wall of Sound. Now, my understanding of the Wall of Sound is that it's something to do with the echo and the layering and how full you make a record sound. He was very famous for this in the 60s and the 70s. Now, at this point, he's 62 and he has millions of dollars. Millions and millions of dollars. He has lots of property. Yeah, he's worth a fortune at this point. The money that he made came largely from all of the stuff that he produced, but some of the more famous stuff is he produced Let It Be by the Beatles. He produced Imagine by John Lennon. He produced and had a writing credit on Be My Baby, which any of you Dirty Dancing fans out there will know. The incredible Be My Baby, it's such a good song. And River Deep Mountain High by Ike and Tina. Now, I love that song. What a fucking song that is. I mean, that's surely one of the very best songs ever written. So well produced by him. So he was big, you know. Phil Spector was a massive producer. He was someone to really go to when you wanted your records to become a hit. So back to the club. It was suggested to Lana by her employer that she, and I'm quoting, treats him like gold. He was to be waited on constantly by Lana, and it was impressed upon her just how important this man was. They share a few drinks, she sits for a while, and she chats with him, and they're getting on really well. However, Phil Spector's quite drunk by this point, and other staff note that he's starting to slur his words and fall around a little bit. So, although he's drunk, he orders a shot of 151% rum. Now, I didn't even know you could get such a thing. Now, I've had a lot of alcohol in my life, but I did not know that 151% rum existed. I might have been into that if I'd known about it. He's also taking a lot of medication at this time, and the detective who gets involved in the case later says, at this point, Phil Spector is pretty lubed up. Now, I don't know if that's an American phrase, lubed up, but I think it certainly means something else in the UK. I'm not sure. Well, I do know it definitely means something else in the UK. I'm not sure if also the same thing applies in America or around the world, but the phrase lubed up does not say to me someone's had a few drinks and is taking some medication. It's definitely a reference to something else. So, a few hours pass and he's so intoxicated that Lana has to help him out of the club. He asks her to come back to his house for a nightcap and she declines, but he becomes insistent, and so they get into his limousine and she goes home with him. So they're driven by the... What the fuck? What the fuck? Oh, what is she doing? Sorry, my fucking... her, there. She's my stupid fucking neighbour. What is she doing? Why is she cutting through my garden? Oh, I think she's drunk. Oh, sorry about this. My my neighbour who lives like three, 4 sort of doors down. She's currently, I mean, this is Saturday afternoon, about 5 o'clock, and she's cutting through my garden, and she's wearing pyjama bottoms. I don't understand what she's doing. She's got on a hoodie. What the fuck? So I'm recording from my spare bedroom, and I look out over my garden. My back garden's quite long, so it sort of goes right up to the back, and I've got a big sort of shed at the back, and she's fucking... What is she doing? She's wandering about. What a nutter. Oh fuck. She's looking up. She sees me. Oh no, I don't think she saw me. Okay. Alright, she's leaving now. She's leaving my garden. Right, sorry about that. That was a weird fucking... Yeah. How weird. Anyway, okay, let's move on. So, let's go back. Where was I? Okay, so they're driven home by the Phil Spector's chauffeur, who is called D'Souza. They go indoors, they open a bottle of tequila. Not that I think he really needed any more to drink, but he obviously had that feeling, you know, when you've just like had quite a lot to drink and you just think, one more. Yeah, I'll just have one more wee drink. That's quite often my problem, is I do quite enjoy a drink, even though I've already had quite a lot. I'm sure we've all been there when it's 5 a.m. and you think, oh, just one more drink. But anyway, so D'Souza, the chauffeur, hears a single gunshot inside the house. He enters the house, and in the foyer he sees Lana Clarkson slumped in a chair with blood all around her. He immediately phones the police. Because the call comes from inside one of the richest men in town, police respond quickly, and when they get there, they discover Lana Clarkson is dead. What has killed her is a single gunshot to the mouth. Who fired the gun is the first question asked by police. Now, police are either looking at D'Souza, the chauffeur, Phil Spector, or is it possible that Lana Clarkson fired the shot herself? Phil Spector is unresponsive when police ask questions. He stands in the foyer with his hands in his pockets and he refuses to take them out. And so, a struggle begins and police eventually have to taser him. When questioned, D'Souza tells the police that Phil Spector stepped out onto the porch before the 911 call was made and says the words, "I think I just killed someone." The gun is found next to her leg, and when they do a search of the property, they find 13 guns in Phil Spector's house. 13 fucking guns. Every gun is registered to Phil Spector except for the gun which killed Lana. It isn't registered to anyone. Now this obviously complicates things. Just when it's beginning to look a little bit like a sort of sewn up case, the unregistered gun causes confusion. But then, during all of this, so the police are buzzing around his house, there's people coming to take Lana's body out, there's photographs being taken. He says to a police officer, "I didn't mean to kill her, it was an accident." So while police continue to search, they find blood-soaked rags in one of the bathrooms. The blood's tested and it belongs to Lana. So there's been some sort of attempt to clean up the crime scene. Now all of this, it's pretty quick work here by the police. Within an hour and a half, Phil Spector is arrested for the murder. But now he changes his story. Of course he does. Classic, change your story. Classic. He tells police she used the gun to kill herself, and he says she had no fucking right to come to my castle and blow her fucking brains out. Bail is set for Spector, so he gets a lawyer, and being as rich and famous as he is, he gets Robert Shapiro. Now that's a name that some of you will definitely be familiar with. He is the lawyer from the O.J. Simpson case. At this point, I'm just going to introduce Philip Spector's hair. And we have to talk about this. Now, throughout the entire court case, which I'll come on to in a minute, he keeps changing his hair all the time. I think it's a variety of wigs. He's the weirdest looking man with his hair. One minute he can look like Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons, and the next minute he looks like Cher. It's unbelievable. He goes from these kind of like bizarre shortcuts. At one point he's wearing a bob, actually straight off of like Vidal Sassoon bob, and the next thing he's like got all these massive big fucking curls that makes him look like Cher from the Turn Back Time video. Prior to this, he'd been a sort of your average 60s, 70s looking man with his moustache. Is it lamb chops? Is that what you call them? Like when men have the massive, massive sideburns that go down? Yeah, I think it's lamb chops. And just some sort of longish hair. But yeah, his look, and it is interesting for me because it keeps changing all of the time. So from 2003 up until the point where he actually can be seen now, his look is just, it's wildly different. It just keeps changing all the time. So police quickly rule out that Lana could have taken her own life. Nearly a month on, all of the information, the DNA, the photos of the crime scene have been collected, and they say there's just absolutely no way did she kill herself. That's just not even a possibility. Philip is now saying it's accidental suicide, and he's pretty sure that he's going to get exonerated from this. He goes to the press. He talks to Esquire magazine. Now, Esquire magazine, I don't know if it still exists. Esquire magazine, I think, was a bit of a, well, for want of a better way to put it, I think it was a bit of a lads magazine. Had some naked girls in it. Or am I thinking of something else? Hang on. Oh no, wait there. No, I get Esquire magazine. I'm remembering it now. Esquire magazine was the magazine that, yeah, it was a magazine for men, and it used to sell like it used to like promote expensive watches, expensive cars, and sell this kind of sexy lifestyle to men, I think, at the time. Yeah, that's what Esquire magazine was. Anyway, he says in this interview that she accidentally killed herself, and he says she kissed the gun. Horrible. So, before I get to the court case, let me just give you a little bit more information about Phil Spector. So, he was described as wild, and he was known as being aggressive and had always used guns to control people. There are well-documented cases where in a studio, whilst recording, Phil Spector would pull guns on people in order to keep them playing or keep them working. One of the stories is that he chased John Lennon down a corridor in the recording studios, aiming a gun at him when Lennon wanted to stop recording. The same happened with the Ramones. He forced one member to stay by pulling a gun on him. Spector had an obsession with guns, and this apparently came from his childhood, where he had been attacked as a teenager and from then on carried a weapon. Now, he's quite a small man, Phil Spector. He's not a big sort of 6 foot towering guy. He's I don't know, I think he's just less than about 5 feet. So perhaps a bit of small man syndrome going on there. He had been married to Ronnie Benet. No, it's not Ronnie Benet. I said that like Jean Benet. He'd been married to Ronnie Bennett, who was the lead singer of the Ronettes, and he had produced quite a lot of the Ronettes records at the time. The Ronettes, if you don't know them, sort of Diana Ross and the Supremes type vibe, that kind of girl group of the time. Some of their music's actually really nice. That kind of vibe. And she had reported that there were guns all over the house all the time during their marriage. Her descriptions of the marriage are really rough, and she talks about him being just nuts, generally, just being a bit crazy. He would do things like lock her in a closet. He monitored her calls, and he constantly threatened to kill her. The creepiest bit is that he had a gold coffin in the basement, and he used to say to her, "This coffin will be yours if you ever try and leave me." I mean, what the fuck? Get out of there. Get away from this man. But she did. She escaped. Now, she escaped only by running barefoot from the house and getting away from him and reporting to police what happened. They divorced in 1974. So his life becomes quite reclusive and his mental health is very fragile. Life wasn't unfolding exactly as Phil Spector had hoped. In 1966, he produced Ike and Tina Turner's single River Deep Mountain High, which I spoke about earlier on. Now, Spector considered it his greatest production to date, and while it placed at number 3 on the UK pop charts, it peaked at number 88 in the US. So, embittered, Spector went into seclusion for 2 years, during which time there were reports of strange, near psychotic behaviour, and he did very little for the rest of the 60s. But this continued. He almost became a sort of recluse. He just vanished back into the house where he'd made all the money and was not producing anything, and not really seen by anyone at that time. Okay, let's go back to the case. So, 7 months after the fatal night of her death, the coroner declares that her death was a homicide. He just ruled out suicide. Oddly, they did find gunshot residue on her hands, and this just complicated things a little. This means that she did touch the gun. Now, that's quite odd. But, my questions there are, was there a struggle? Did Spectre produce this gun, and was he waving it around in front of her, and did she try and struggle it out of his hands because she knew something was going to happen? It's also discovered that Lana was very drunk and that she had painkillers in her system, but Philip's blood tests showed that he was on an absolutely crazy combination of pills and alcohol. He had been diagnosed with bipolar, so he had been experimenting with a range of medications. I don't know much about bipolar, so again, I'm not an expert, so I've just done some research. These are apparently some of the signs, some of the symptoms of someone being bipolar. High energy and excessive activity, an overly good mood, irritability or impatience, fast erratic talking, racing thoughts, inability to concentrate, little need for sleep, and feelings of power. So in 2007, the court case begins. And again, we're going to go back to the hair. I'm sorry to keep going on about it, but it is quite hilarious. It is quite hilarious. He comes to the court every day looking entirely different. And so the media begin to document this all the time just because it is just so weird. It sort of shows you someone who's not really got one identity, is that each day he just keeps swapping what he thinks he should look like on that particular day in court. He fires Robert Shapiro and he hires Leslie Abraham. Now, you'll know about Leslie Abraham, maybe just because you know about her, but you'll also know about Leslie Abraham because I talk extensively about her on episode 4, The Menendez Brothers. She fascinates me, Leslie Abraham. She absolutely fascinates me. She's one of these lawyers who works in these high profile cases, and yeah, she's just so interesting in how tenacious she is and how much she fights for what she believes to be the truth, even though it's not the truth. She always seems to work in the cases where you know that the person is guilty, but Leslie Abraham is there fighting their corner at every turn, which is why I guess why people actually get Leslie Abraham to come and work for them, because they know they're guilty, they know they're going to be convicted for it, but hopefully what she can do is get them a lesser sentence. The main witness for the prosecution is D'Souza. He testifies that after the gunshot, Spectre comes running from the property, claiming that he's killed someone with the gun in his hand. But this is difficult, because the gun is photographed next to Lana's leg. It also transpires that there was Viagra found at the scene, and the prosecution claim that he took a couple of Viagra, wanted a bit of sexy time, and hit the rage when Lana wanted to leave. Now, obviously, they put it way better than that, but that's the basic theory. Now the prosecution play an absolute blinder. They bring 5 women who testify about times when Spectre had pulled a gun on them. Number 1, an employee tries to leave a party, he pulls a gun. Number 2, an ex-girlfriend has a gun in her face because she wanted to separate from him. Number 3, another ex tells how he pistol whipped her when she tried to leave him. Number 4, in 1995, he entered the room of a photographer and he threatens her with a gun. Number 5, another woman tells of the time she met Spectre and he made her undress at gunpoint before attempting to rape her. Now, how has this never been dealt with? That's one of my questions. How has the abuse that his wife Ronnie went through, these 5 women never ever been dealt with previously. How has Phil Spector never actually ever been challenged about the fact that he would wield a gun in someone's face? I don't understand. Is this just money protecting the rich and the famous? Is that what it is? These witnesses they're all attacked by the defence, and the defence say, oh, it's all lies. Next, the defence tried to say that Lana took her life because she was a poor, struggling actress. She had nowhere to go. She had no money. She was so poor. Poor Lana, the only thing that she could do was shoot herself in the face in Phil Spector's home. Oh, fuck off. So the case goes to the jury and the deliberations take 2 weeks. The jury comes back with a 10-2 in favour of conviction. So the judge declares a mistrial. So, in 2008, the case begins again. This time Lana's mother testifies and she refutes the idea that her daughter can have been suicidal. In 2009, the jury find him guilty. So, Philip Spector goes to prison. He is sentenced to 19 years to life. He will be eligible for parole in 2028, by which time he'll be 88 years old. Throughout his incarceration, Phil Spector has not been allowed to wear any type of wig. The images of him are so haunting. Go and look them up. They are absolutely terrifying. He looks like something from Lord of the fucking Rings. It's terrible. So, he's in prison for a crime that he committed. Good. And so ends the story of Phil Spector. Okay, what do I find interesting about this story? Well, him, for a start. I think it's really interesting that he had previously threatened women with guns, that he had an abusive marriage in which he abused his wife and put her through years of terror and nothing was done about it. And we got to this point. Now, I feel like Lana's death might not have happened had actually police intervened there earlier on and been able to stop what Phil Spector was actually doing. Because I think what you were actually dealing with there, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but I think what you're dealing with there is actually a big mental health issue. You're dealing with somebody, he's diagnosed bipolar. He's got 13 guns in his house. Something's not right, and just nobody did anything about it. And that really, I just find that really bothers me. It really bothers me that, there was all these people who had a story and who knew that he was a danger. Nothing was ever done about it. And unfortunately, poor Lana Clarkson was the person who died out of the situation, which is shocking. As always, I'm going to find Leslie Abraham interesting in the story, just because, I said it earlier on, but just the cases that she gets involved in, they're just always so weird. Some other things about Phil Spector. He had remarried a month before going to prison, and his wife, Rochelle, I think you say it Rochelle, kind of looks like Rachel, but I think it's Rochelle, is said to be shocked that Phil is now filing for divorce from prison. She's lived quite the lavish life since his incarceration. She's become a pilot and she's bought a plane. And now, no one's saying she's a gold digger, but come on. Okay, that's the end of the story. Thanks for listening. If you want to get in touch, you can. It's on Twitter at Extra Stories Pod. On Instagram, it's Extraordinary Stories Podcast. On Facebook, Extraordinary Stories Podcast. You'll find me there. Or if you want to send me an email, it's at extraordinarystoriespodcast@gmail.com. Please get in touch. Let me know your thoughts. As always, as I always say, if you know a story that's worth sharing, then let me know. Okay? Goodbye.
It didn't affect me really one way or the other. I would imagine from the look on his face, let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over. Let's get it on, let's do it, let's get it over.